Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Cone Dodger here. Welcome to part number 4 of the 2020 Viper Build-Off Contest finalists. Today we got two more cars to look at, starting with Chipskates. This 2020 Dodge Viper, as we see from inside the automation headquarters, is small. It is a tiny version of a Viper. Really, it's not that small, but when we compare it to the Viper we know and the other contest cars we've had so far, it is very small. However, it's got some good wow factor. And that's our first category, the 10-year-old wow factor. First off, we have to note the racing stripes. Sure, it's blue, but this is the one and only of the 10 finalists to have the racing stripes. A Viper standard issue in blue and white. It's really, really well done and instantly adds some wow factor. Nothing adds wow factor to any car more than racing stripes, right? No, seriously, keep the racing stripes off your Corolla, okay? But no, yeah, it's very, very good. It does add quite a bit to the car. And there's a lot to the car. It is, like I said, small. And when I first looked at it and I saw the design, I didn't really notice how small it was, and I think that is a testament to the design because it does actually have quite a bit of presence to it for being such a small representation. The front has a very aggressive look. I really like the headlights. They just look incredibly mean, and the whole front end presentation is quite aggressive. This hood scoop arrangement is aggressive. The side scoops are very impressive, and the rear, more than anything, is extremely impressive looking. Yeah, it looks not quite as aggressive as the front, but with the continuation of the racing stripes and the rear diffuser and the taillight assembly, it's really good, really good. The big Viper across the back definitely works for the wow factor. I don't know how it works with the design, but it does work for the wow. So honestly, this is one of the more difficult ones that I've had to judge for this category, because a lot of pluses and minuses here. The small nature of the car definitely does take away from some of the wow factor. The very large, obnoxious proportions of previous Vipers has a big influence on that presentation, but the looks of the car itself are very strong for its presentation and overall wow factor. It has an aggressive look, and it does have good proportions that do look aggressive, but overall the size really holds it back in that wow factor, which is interesting. That's not really something I had considered going into this, but seeing it, especially in the world here, it definitely does play a factor. If it wasn't for the racing stripes, it would be a 9. The racing stripes bring it to a 10, alright? If it if it was just presented with no racing stripes and just in blue, I think I only could have given this a 9. And a 10 is probably a little bit generous. However, I'm sticking with my 10 because it's a good package. You've done a lot with a small body. You put a lot of work into those racing stripes to really help in this particular category. And yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and award another perfect score here in the wow factor. And that's definitely an impressive feat for the design restrictions you put yourself against here. Thematic restrictions and design theme is going to be a very common factor through the whole review of this car. Even in Viper Legacy. Viper Legacy, like I said, these cars have always been largely proportioned. They have, obnoxiously wide hips, long hoods, big sweeping lines, and to use this smaller body is definitely a departure from that. However, even in the smaller scale of this car, this is probably one of the most identifiable and unmistakable Viper bodies that we have in the competition. If you knew nothing else about the car, and you just approached it from any angle, really, it looks Viper. Maybe the stripes are helping again here. Well, that's hey, kudos to Chipskate, I believe it is, for taking the time to do that, because it's helping. But the taillights are very good. There's a lack of, this third brake light isn't exactly the theme I would expect. The taillight theme is good. The black panel across the back and the overall design of the taillights fits pretty well. The side vents are signature. The front end is very signature and modern. I'm super impressed with. It looks like an evolution of the design. It really does. It's growing up the design. The grille does not feature the crosshair, so that's a little bit of a departure there. But the headlight and the overall mouth shape, as well as the ducts in the hood and the overall hood kind of presentation, are all doing very well at bringing Viper back into this. So this is a tough one. This is a tough one. Do we go for the full 5 points? I don't think I am. Because it is a departure, because it is trying to be a Viper in a very different way, and it is missing some of the key signature elements, but it does very good at others. I think I'm going to go for a 4, which is still a really good score for the Legacy, especially considering it got a 10 in wow factor. That's 2 good scores back to back. But next up, we need to talk about the timelessness of the design. So that's another interesting one here. I don't think the choice of doing the quote-unquote mini Viper really affects this one as much, other than the fact that it could have been dramatically overstyled to try and make up for the small body. That's certainly a choice that could have been made. And there is a lot of design elements here. We got the diffuser, we got a spoiler, we have an aggressive front end and front lip arrangement, the very aggressive hood arrangement. So there's a lot of, big details on the car that, they're flaunting. They're maybe not as smooth and sleek as some of the other designs. The overall look, though, it's very cohesive. I think that's a word I've used quite a bit when I'm judging this particular part of the cars, because I think that's important. A cohesive design to me is something that makes a car be able to be more timeless than others. Some examples of that. Well, we've mentioned the 96 GTS quite a bit. I'm also going to reference things like the Aston Martin DB9. That is an old design that still looks good, and it still looks timeless today. Not because it was very complicated, but because it all worked together. The proportions were right, the fixtures, if you will, all work together, and it's just sleek and elegant. And it still looks like it was designed to be that way. It wasn't being designed to be in the moment. Whereas maybe some of the modern Lexus designs, they feel very designed to be in the moment. They're designed to be cutting edge today and attention grabby today. But I feel like in 10, 15 years, those designs are going to look irrelevant. They're going to look of their age, because that will no longer be the edgy look, the cutting brake. That will no longer be the cutting edge, bleeding edge design anymore. So that's kind of my thinking in the timelessness category. This one, it's kind of in the middle. It definitely has some of the modern design elements trying to look aggressive and maybe overstyled in some ways, but it's a nice blend of the two. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and give a 4 in timelessness, and those are really good scores overall for the presentation and the looks of the car. I'm very impressed. It's an extremely impressive, cohesive, well done design for what I think is a design challenge. You certainly challenged yourself above and beyond with this one, I think. Even if you didn't intend to. It could be that maybe you just thought that this was the best looking of the bodies to choose from. But from my perspective, it's certainly a unique take and a unique challenge. So now we need to move on to the drivetrain stuff, and once again, this car, let me turn on the UI. Hello! This car is presenting itself with more unique challenges. This is small representation. It also has a small engine. This is a 3.2 liter inline 5 turbocharged engine. So thematically, I think this one came with some email description, but thematically I think I can read this one pretty well. This is the idea of the Viper needing to downsize to stay relevant, because the large, inefficient, and honestly gaudy Viper that has always been is maybe not so relevant in modern terms, and just doesn't have a place. So this is downsized, and downsized an engine as well. Half the cylinders are gone. So an inline 5, turbocharged, high-strung, and quite powerful engine. 525 horsepower is a lot less than old Vipers for sure, but 2,800 pounds in this car is quite a bit less than modern Vipers are weighing in. Well, not quite a bit, but enough. It's light enough, I think. Could potentially, I think, have been a little bit lighter to try and do better with its lower horsepower numbers. However, because it's small, it's probably going to drive like a more spirited car, regardless of the less power. So we really need to talk about how feasible is this? Where would this inline 5 come from? It could be similar to what I did with my V10, where it's a 4-cylinder existing in the family that had an additional cylinder added to it. 3.2 liters isn't ridiculously big, and you know, it would certainly be an additional cylinder plus probably stroked out versus the inline 4 that it came from, but I could see it as plausible. I could see it as doable. Maybe not super common. There are other manufacturers that have done inline 5s. Currently, the Volkswagen Group, mostly used in Audi products, uses inline 5s pretty frequently. General Motors has done inline 5s. I believe Volvo? I'm pretty sure Volvo has inline 5s. Many companies have. But it is overall an uncommon engine choice. Throw onto there that it's this one is represented with some pretty spectacularly high-tech stuff like magnesium block and forged internals, and it's a really, really overbuilt engine, very highly engineered. So I do think, to some degree, the overall drivetrain, the overall underpinnings of the car has a little bit of a decreased plausibility, but it's not necessarily implausible. It's not, you know, a brand new architecture twin turbo V12 or something like that. That would be completely implausible to me that you know, a Dodge based company could do that. However, it's not the most plausible. It's not a V10, it's not a V8, it's not any of the engines that we know the family has in the running and ready to put into this car. So I think what I'm going to do, by the way, it is still a manual, which is nice. Means it doesn't need to borrow too much there, and it is just an aluminum body, aluminum chassis car. Aluminum body is a bit different, a bit of a departure, but not necessarily unfeasible. So overall, I think I'm going to go for a 5 on plausibility, and then when we talk about creativity, I've pretty much said already, just in talking about the plausibility, what I think of it in creativity. It's a creative solution. It's a neat idea and well executed to think of a Viper on a downside scale. Think of it as something that would be much more relevant to modern markets and EPA requirements and all that stuff. It's going to get better miles per gallon, but still try to present itself with a Viper spirit. Maybe some of the things with the engine could have been done a little bit more creatively, in the fact that they could have been more creatively realistic, I believe, which is a weird statement. Creatively realistic. basically what I think is a little bit more design exercise could have been done there. You could have maybe challenged yourself a bit more to try and make this 5-cylinder a more believable 5-cylinder. So, whereas maybe my initial impressions was this is a 10 out of 10 creativity, I'm going to rein that down back to an 8 out of 10 for creativity. It's a creative solution, and we're going to have to see if that creative solution works for a Viper, though. That's where we will go from here. But I really do like the idea. It's well done, and I'm really liking, so far, how the theme all works together. So now we need to move into how does that all work together to make a Viper. And the first thing on that is the Darwin check. This is, I believe, if I remember correctly, our first turbocharged entry. And, you know, since it does have, I believe, the lowest power of all the cars we've done so far, but it is just standard rear-wheel drive, it's kind of a mystery to me. So far, just driving it around in the streets, it hasn't done anything that makes me completely scared of it. Let's get up to kind of a cruising speed. It's the first time we really heard these loud turbo sounds. It's got highway gearing, so we can maybe go to second. Oh, you can't do Darwin check, Cone. You can't do a Darwin check with ESC on, you fool. I'm not even smart enough for a Darwin check. Alright. Let's get back to speed. Still got enough space. I think we might go to first, too. Because it felt like second was pretty down in RPM. Yep. Okay. Not nearly as fast. It did not get away from me nearly as fast as some of the other cars. I don't think a lot of people, or maybe, that might be a little harsh. I think maybe some people aren't really understanding my intent with the Darwin check and like the cars and coffee things. So basically, it's a little bit of my own take on what makes a Viper, and that was the competition. It's certainly very much so based on my personal opinions of a Viper. And to me, for a car to share the Viper legacy of the rest of them, it needs to be a car that is raw enough that when the driver does things that a driver shouldn't do, the car isn't going to be there to save you. Because when a car is that safe and there to save you, it's just a different experience. You're not going to get that raw, pure, like, driving feeling. You know, you're not 100% connected to the road. So that's where this kind of challenge comes from. That's where the Cars and Coffee comes from, because Cars and Coffee is a car show that many of them get shut down by people being hoons and doing stupid things with their cars, like Vipers, and either crashing them or worse. Alright, so let's try that one more time. Okay, I mean, I think with precision driving, I'm just kind of driving like a person that would do this would drive. I think with precision driving, you could probably save this car from that, but it's not easy. I'm pretty impressed for a car. Ooh, no, maybe I can't. I tried there, and it still got away from me pretty severely. So maybe, yeah, maybe this is a car that it's still pretty raw. It's there to let you do whatever it is you want to do with it. So yeah, I'm going to award it all 10 points in Darwin check, which I think is ultimately extremely surprising. I did not expect that out of this car. But now we need to take it over to the handling track, see if it's any good on the track stuff. This so far is shaping up to be a pretty high scoring car. I think this might accidentally be a car that is doing quite well with my particular scoring style. I say accidentally only because it's certainly presented in a very dramatically different way than a lot of the other entries. but that might be a plus for it. But if it doesn't drive very well on the track, then all of that could go away. Alright, this little car should do very well on the handling circuit. However, ooh, it is high power rear-wheel drive with, I think, smaller tires than a lot of our competitors. So it may have some tendencies that are a little bit hard to handle. But if it's hard to handle but fun, it can still do well on the handling track for scoring. So far, ESC has had to do a lot of work for me here, which I'm a little bit surprised by. It's got a much sharper turn-in than a lot of our entries because of its wheelbase. Yeah, ESC plus turbo lag there. A big factor. Pretty sure I'm seeing, like, the suspension poking through the hood there on occasion. It's pretty funny. That shows you just how tightly packaged this whole car is. Which is probably a good reason also that it only scored a 5 in plausibility. This is a lot to fit into a small package. Also, where would this chassis and stuff have come from? That's another factor, but I didn't read too much into that. So far, it's I feel like it does very well. I could probably do this track very fast, and it's controllable, and I'm certainly enjoying the fact that it kind of tosses around and slides a bit, and you know, it's overall, it drives more like a real hopped-up Miata, or maybe even an S2000. Kind of gives me some of those S2000 vibes. So it does it very well. However, it doesn't. The power band I think, is what is detracting some of the fun out of it. Maybe I need to try first gear, but that seems like just a recipe for wheel spin. Yeah. Plus, then it's going to be constantly revving out. It does rev real high. Yeah, that's a lot more to keep up with. I think this might be one of our first entries to lose points on handling circuit, not because of handling, but because of gearing. I feel like the gearing could have been adjusted a little bit to better match the turbo style. I do understand the box you put yourself in there with the turbo stuff, since a lot of that in automation and BeamNG still has work to be done as far as how they work versus real life. I'm gonna turn ESC off. Now I probably will need second gear. I've already gotten myself in trouble. Easy. Yeah, I don't know what rear diff this has in it. It almost feels like maybe it doesn't have enough lock in the rear. Something is making it very snap oversteery. It almost handles more mid-engined than front-engined. Could just be the short wheelbase doing that. Yeah. As much as I really wanted this thing to be really dominant on this course, I would have given it a 4 for its handling. However, with the gears, the overall drivetrain setup, I think I'm going to have to knock it back to a 3. Fun, but I just feel, I can constantly feel like there's room for improvement. It could have been more fun. It's certainly not ultimately drivable with ESC off. Alright, now on the big track, this thing's got to prove that it has Viper-like performance for part of its trackability here. A little bit slower down the back straight, but not ridiculously so. Oh, buddy. A little dancy there. ESC working overtime. actually locking the brakes a bit, even with ABS working as hard as it can. That was a big slide for having ESC on. It almost feels maybe a little under-tired, like it doesn't have wide enough tires. Could be a factor here. Which helps in its Viper characteristics, but it's hurting it in outright trackability. It's making it fun. It's making it fun, but overall rather spooky, and it feels like a car I wouldn't dare turn off ESC unless I was very comfortable with it and had a lot of experience with it under my belt. Understeer there as we drive it in deep. Let's see how the brake's holding up. Oh, you can see it. The right front was overheating, using the gearbox really to slow me down for turn 1. It's at the limit of the brakes. I don't want to say it's not got enough for a car that's supposed to be, you know, sold for the street, not maybe an ACR version. Yeah, it's definitely having some issues shedding heat from the brakes. Interesting, I think, that it's really heavily eating up one side of the brakes more than the other. I don't know if that's something to do with wheelbase and just how nervous the car is, because the car always feels like it's a little skewed, you know, the back end's always kind of wagging about. Let's see how fast we can go in here. Oh, well, that was that was frickin' glorious. You do not slide cars through slingshot very often and live to tell about it. So, whereas I was previously going down to a 3 on trackability, thanks to that one moment, I'm gonna bring it back up to a 4. It certainly feels more at home on the big track, and the gearing is not nearly as frustrating on the big track. So, it works here. I wish it was a little bit more stable. I wish I had a little bit bigger tire on it, so that I would feel comfortable to bring ESC off. But I just have the feeling as soon as I click this off, it's going to snap away from me. Already feels rather unstable. Yep. Alright, everybody, Cars and Coffee's been great, but it's time to go home. Wow. I think it passes, but it also has the ability to do some really fun stuff. Oh man, ultimately this thing is, it's a car that can get away from you, and you can do some stupid things with, but it's also pretty darn drivable. Like, the short wheelbase does it huge favors in this regard. Do I think it's a full 5? Probably. It would be close, but its instant ability to light them up. And there we go, it hit the curb too. So 5 out of 5. Overall, I really do like the car. I think it maybe needed just a touch more refinement. It just, yeah, some of the handling characteristics, that could have something to do with the body. The body seems to have a lot of flex to it. Some of the handling characteristics are just a little unrefined in like not even like a Viper way, but just in an awkward way. But it still makes a pretty impressive package. And like I said, I was very impressed with your ability to stick to your theme, the Mini Viper. If you had told me before the competition that somebody was going to make a small scale Viper and it was going to be one of my favorites, I think I would have been surprised, but it's been a surprising car. The I didn't know Powers had an alt account. Award goes to Nerd for this off-roader tank rear-engined Boxer 4 Viper concept thing. The Act of Treason Award. Travere made a Viper into a crossover. Next up in our 2020 Viper Challenge is Durbeyer's entry. This one, we can actually already hear it. It is a very loud car parked over there. Now we're going back to a more traditional Viper size, but I think a non-traditional Viper look. From inside, it's a strikingly sleek and beautiful car. And now we need to see if it has any 10-year wow factor. As we approach, definitely a car that has a sleek and somewhat modern, but also reserved styling. Honestly, this car is representing almost the European take of a Viper, which definitely, I think, brings down some of the overzealous American style that some of the other entries have. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have any wow factor. There are some very interesting details. These side skirts are awesomely done and have a lot of presence to them. The hood arrangement with the very aggressive scoop and vents on the hood, the very large front splitter and crosshair grille arrangement. The rear is extremely clean, like a very clean design in the back with a diffuser, but overall pretty clean and simple. This is a car that I think has 40-year-old wow factor. You get what I mean there? Like, this is the car that I think when adults see it go by, they go, wow, that's somebody that's doing well for themselves. Which doesn't score as well in the 10-year-old wow factor for sure. It's certainly a very different take. It does have bright yellow brake calipers, so there's a plus. There's certainly some elements. I'm actually even going to include in that the sound, because just sitting here idling, it's very loud. Every car I've had has been sitting here idling, and this is one of the first to actually just sit here and rumble and make noise. So that has some wow factor. The carbon roof and such. So not huge scores here. Not very wow-inspiring. Maybe wow-inspiring to a different generation. So I am going to go for... I'm gonna go for a 4 on this one. I know that's very harsh, and it's a tough hurdle for this car to overcome. However, I don't see as it impossible. Obviously, the next thing we need to talk about is legacy. Does this car look like a Viper? Does it have Viper traits? Can I tell that you did Viper research before you started building this car? Sort of. There's certain aspects of it that are quite Viper. The hood arrangement, it does have a version of the crosshair grille. The headlights are reminiscent of the current gen, but almost a little bit more sedate. The back has a taillight shape that is, again, reminiscent of a Viper design, but not necessarily... maybe doesn't share exact lineage. It's more of an homage to it than anything. You got the gas door on the pillar. That's a Viper touch. Side pipes in the side skirts. Viper touches. The side vents. Viper touches. And that's kind of it. The general shape. The long hood. The big back hips. There's some Viper legacy there. But overall, I think people would have a hard time putting this car in that family of cars. Like, if you put this car in with the other 4, 5, 6 generations, depending on who you want to argue with on what Viper generations are, I think you'd probably have an oddball, and it would be this one. So, again, unfortunately for the looks, I say unfortunately because it's a very nice design. It is certainly very elegant and sleek and good looking. it just doesn't scream Viper to me. Doug DeMuro is not shouting into my ear, Viper. So, only going to go for a 2 on Legacy. However, timelessness. When I look at this car and I look at this design and its sleek elegantness, its cohesiveness, its shape, all the fixtures, everything works together very well. This is a car that does kind of scream timeless to me. The headlights maybe are almost already a little dated looking. They look of a period. However, they work together with the look, you know, the smooth lines and everything like that. So, it's a tough one for me. It oozes class. Class doesn't always mean timelessness, but it sure as hell does help. And I think because of that, because it is so classy, so elegant, and I think this design would have looked good in 1998, and it still looks good in 2018, I am indeed going to say this is a timeless design and give it a 5 there. So, redeeming itself a little bit in the visual running. Now we need to see what is underneath of this classy looking beast. Alright, I might have to speak up a little bit over this one. So, what makes up this Viper in the drivetrain department? What's the underpinnings? Is it very Viper? It is staggeringly Viper. This is an 8.4 liter V10. It is overhead valve, meaning it is cam in block, pushrod setup, and it is 8.4 liters of V10 rawness. It does have direct injection, so it's a little bit more modern. The interesting part of that is it is a dual clutch behind that engine, which would be quite a feat with a car with this much power and torque, but not undoable. And it makes 716 horsepower, so even more than we were familiar with. Other than that, though, it is still a rear-wheel drive, so no major changes there. It is a semi-space frame with aluminum body, not carbon fiber, so really, honestly, not a lot of creativity here. The underpinnings of this car, it's a updated, modernized last-gen Viper, basically. So with that, how plausible and how creative is it? These two are going to, interestingly, play off each other here. So, plausibility... You would expect me to say plausibility is very high, since this is not a dramatically different Viper engine. However, my questioning from the beginning of this is, can the Viper continue as it was? Could it actually live with its traditional Viper V10 engine? The idea that it could get direct injection and dual clutch to kind of modernize it does, I think, give the Viper V10 a little bit more distance. You know, it can make it stay around for a bit longer. You're going to get a bit more fuel mileage, and this is only a couple years away, so we don't have a lot of time to develop a brand new engine. So plausibility, I will give it high marks. I'm going to give it an 8 in plausibility. 10, I think 10 is reserved for maybe something that would be pre-existing, something that they could just throw into the Viper and still, you know, maintain its Viperness. But this is pretty doable. Creatively, though, it's just kind of not. It's not an extremely creative solution to extend the life of the Viper, and due to that, I think it's because it does have the dual clutch, because it is a little bit modernized. It's not a 1, but I don't feel comfortable giving it more than a 3. If it had been a standard 6-speed manual, rear-wheel drive, and if maybe it hadn't even featured the direct injection, then maybe it was a 1. But the combination of all the different factors bring it up to a 3. I do think, however, even though this car didn't maybe visually represent a Viper particularly well, I think this is going to be our first, or maybe one of the better representations of a Viper handling car with a dual clutch. And the first test of that will be in the Darwin check, so let's turn off ESC. We'll go to manual mode. Let's cruise up to a 5th gear. This is harder to do with a DSG, but we'll see. Yeah, it's definitely... There's a little bit of that delay, and it takes you a little bit longer to get yourself in trouble. And there's, you know, there's a lot of steps you gotta take before it lets you do something dumb. But at the end of the day, it still lets you do something dumb. Ooh, buddy. Even just from a flat-footed start, not dipping down from a roll, even from that, it will get away from you. So, ultimately, this is a car that still retains that scary Viper feeling. The feeling that you need to be in control. You have to have restraint, and you are responsible for keeping this car on the street. That's the Viper mentality for me. There you go. There is a 10 out of 10 for this car in the Darwin check. Now we need to take it over to the handling course and see if it's maybe too Darwinistic. Can it actually be reined in? Can you have fun with it on the handling course? Alright, well, full disclosure, I have spun this car out twice on the way over here to the handling track. Let's go ahead and just throw that ESC back on. I had fun doing it, though. Alright, let's see what it's like here. Let's keep it in kind of a low gear, even though this thing makes a lot of horsepower down low. It is a torquey engine, if you will. But with the DSG, we can actually kind of shift a lot on a track this small, which is hard to do with a standard H-pattern manual. Keeping it very low in the revs. However, the car is overall pretty stable. Turns in nicely. It's a problem some of these bigger cars have had is that they just don't want to turn in. They're so set up to get grip out of the 600, 700 horsepower that they have that once you get them on the small track, that they don't have any turn in. Right? It's still hairy, but like I said, look at how it turned in there. I was really deep into that turn. Here as well. The tail is dancy, but that's what I would expect from a car with this much power and rear-wheel drive and a Viper. Nice. Sorry for the background noise of Florida thunderstorms again. Right. Try to really push it now. See, that's fun. That's fun slidey. That's not holding on for dear life slidey. And because this car has power everywhere, I don't have to be too aggressive with shifting. I could even leave it in third, honestly, and have fun, and be even safer. Can I have any fun with the ESC off? Let's see. It's real close right now. It's really close to getting a 5 from me. Perhaps what it does here will determine that. I'm surprised it didn't try to light him up over that. So I'm going to rein it in a little bit more. Yeah, okay. That... I blame myself for that. It's too deep. Oh yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot to deal with ESC off. Let's leave it in third, maybe. Keep it out of power range a bit. It's a lot of car. It's pretty scary. I think given a little bit of time, though, I could probably learn to drive it effectively here, even without stability control. However, drove so fun with stability control, not even going to worry about that, really. I thought for a minute there it was gonna turn back around for me, but it never did. Alright, well, it's real close. This is almost making me wish I had made this a 10-point category because I feel like I could split some hairs with this one. It's so good with ESC on, though, I think I'm going to go for the full 5. This ultimately is a pretty fun car, and I think the DSG actually helps it. I think with a regular manual, it might have been closer to a 4. So even though I don't particularly love DSGs, I think it actually helps this car. But now I need to go to the big track and see how it handles that. I have a feeling it might be a bit of a monster there. If ever you want a car that could make a passenger wet themselves, or maybe even a driver, on any given moment, this is the car for you. It's not only diabolically fast, but it's also handling so on edge that you, even with ESC on, you gotta stay on top of this thing. Oh, I didn't stay on top of there. See, I was so preoccupied on trying to get it planted and settled that I didn't get to the brakes soon enough. This is genuinely surprising to me. For a car that handled as well as this one did on the handling track, on the small track, seems to really not be as comfortable here on the big track. I think it's actually lifting the nose a bit too much. Yeah, you see there. So maybe the suspension's too soft in the back. So the front gets very darty and loose at speed. Yeah, this car should be able to do 160, 170 miles an hour down the straightaway there. But I cannot keep it pointed straight to do it. I'm gonna lose my voice trying to speak over this thing. Slow turns, small course, fun, but real scary. Wow. Yeah, it's real darty. It's one of those cars that I really want to love it here because it's a hoop, and who doesn't love a car that's, you know, just insane to drive? But there is a limit to that, you know? Add on to that the fact that it doesn't seem to have quite enough brakes, or enough cooling to them anyway, for a car that can actually get going fast. And if I ever actually did get the thing pointed straight down the straightaways, it could get going really fast. I think we'll see it here. Still have a lot of heat in the brakes. Yep, completely lost the front brakes, and that's why it got loose there. We're basically only getting rear brakes into these turns. Oh man, that's a surprise to me. Like I said, it really was a fun car on the small course, but on the big course, can't really hold its own. So, have I given a 1 for trackability yet at this point? I think I did. I didn't expect or want this car to be the one, because it has such a fun personality. But unfortunately, it's just not refined enough to be drivable. I just want to try and get it up to a top speed and see what it would actually do. I guarantee you I will not make the slingshot. Nope. So think about that. This car has 200 horsepower more than the last one, and it only went maybe 10 miles an hour faster. It's a 3,600 pound car, so it's mildly heavy. But yeah, I think it should be faster than that for. Oh yeah, and would this thing get Cars and Coffee shut down? You wouldn't even have to leave. You would get it shut down before you even got there. This thing is a monster. In fact, I'll just try to leave this one in a spirited manner. You know, you gotta make the crowd happy. So let's say we were just, you know, hey everybody, bye. It's been fun. What's that? You want to hear what it sounds like? Okay. Yeah, I can't even accelerate straight out of there with it. Passes with flying colors. And that is Dirt Buyer's entry to the Viper 2020 contest. Elegant, sleek, monster. All of those apply here. Thank you, though, for your entry. It was certainly an entertaining experience. And only one more episode to go until we name the crown of the class of next-gen Viper entries. Still a lot of cars to look at, though, and I do want to do some videos with the rest of the cars in there. There's some other categories we could maybe work in. Maybe not to the degree of this. I'll be honest, the amount of time that I have sunk into just this part of it is frankly unbelievable. But I hope you are enjoying, and I'm enjoying going through everybody's entries, and I will see you next time for 2 more cars to look at. You know what, car? Maybe you're happy out here. Just stay there for a while.